Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, joined by my co-host, Suzanne Andreessen. And this is going to be our last episode of our foundational episode series. We've talked about scaling and growth. We've talked about choosing the right market for expansion, finding that plan, whether it's buy and hold versus fix and flip or multifamily. Today, we're going to talk about financing. I'm excited. Obviously, I got RCN Capital on my chest, so there's the first shameless plug potentially of the episode, but neither here nor there. Common funding options, it's something that investors really want to know about, right? You get into this industry, a lot of people think, if I need a loan, I'll go to the bank. That's not the way that investing in real estate works. There's so many options out there. It's really important that investors understand all that they have to play with because it can give them a leg up on their competition.
Well, and the private lending space is a huge avenue for that. They have, as the industry evolves, so has that. 4-ish years ago, 5 years ago, I don't think they had a lot of players in the buy and rent funding strategies, and now there's all kinds of stuff available to do that. So, as you start to build your portfolio, and you have to pay for it, which is the only way you get to buy it. You make sure you figure out what's the best avenue for you to do that, and what's available for you to be successful.
I think private lending is a great place to start because of the versatility of the products that they offer. There's something out there for every investor. And these private lenders have wised up over the years, right? I'm sure at first when they started, it was very rigid. It was kind of, let's do it this way, and the investors will adapt. Over time, private lenders have learned they have to adapt to the needs of their clients, their investors, right? There's something out there for everybody. And the last thing that a private lender or a financial institution wants to do is turn away a client because they can't meet their needs, right? There's obviously going to be parameters out there if an investor doesn't qualify or whatever the case may be, FICO score, you name it. There's a laundry list of requirements. But having that ability to have a deal for everybody makes you a much more inviting, welcoming shop, right? Word of mouth. I worked with X private lender. They worked with me. They were adaptable. We funded the deal. They got creative. We talked with their treasury. Those things, that word of mouth, those reputations carry throughout the industry. And I think private lending has done a great job over the years of being at the forefront of that and allowing that positive word of mouth to spread on their behalf.
Well, and it's evolved. It's not your cousin Vinny or Uncle Vinny, giving you the loan and then coming after you with a baseball bat if you're late on the payment. And this gives you the opportunity to, especially if you're new, starting out, you have to build your credibility in the space, even with your funding partners. And you can get a couple of these good acquisitions under your belt and show that not only are you good at morphing the property into a livable asset and a positive resident experience, but now that you have a history and you've got a payment history, and you've got some good footing in a space, and that's really going to be how you have the opportunity to expand your market.
Yeah, I think that's a stigma that private lending has done a really good job of combating. From what I understand, it used to be a little bit of the wild, wild west, maybe a decade or 20 years ago when private lending first became a thing.
It's called hard money.
Yes.
All right, it was hard. Hard money became private lending.
So now it's much more regulated. People can have their mind at ease, right? There's a track record, right? There's been that reform, and now there's people in the industry that care about helping the investor, right? They don't care about making the quick buck anymore. They don't care about closing the deal for the sake of their numbers at the end of the month. There's actual companies out there invested in the success and the overall well-being of the real estate investor as a whole throughout the country. And I think leaps and bounds that this industry has just been able to expand and help people anywhere and everywhere.
Well, and a couple of weeks ago, we touched on this with Yvonne about the partnerships, developing those partnerships and finding out how they can work with you and support your mission. Because the private lender that you're working with, they want you to keep coming back, and as you start to build your portfolio, what can you do with that equity? What's your next step? Now that you've taken the baby steps and you've got a foothold, what's next?
Yes. And we've talked about it in every other avenue of the industry, whether it's general contractor or a realtor, you name it. There's always people out there that are willing to seek a partnerships because they know, hey, if I team with this investor, it becomes mutually beneficial very quickly. Not only for the private lender, but for the loan officer that you get assigned with when you work with a private lender, right? There's always going to be that one point of contact that will bend over backwards. If they've got an investor sending them 3, 5, 10 deals within the span of a month or two, that person jumps to the top of the list. Yeah, I'll pick up the phone when they call. Yeah, I'll answer their email if they have any questions. So there's also that big overarching private lending in air quotes. But at the end of the day, there's one specific person as a loan officer that's actually forging that partnership, that relationship, and making that go.
And they're the ones, they have your best interest in mind to make that successful, because every time you keep going through, that same loan officer is going to be your partner as you start to acquire more assets.
Yeah, yeah. And I think from funding, just stepping away from private lending for just a moment, there's also business partners out there. There's potential mentors. There's a lot of different ways to be flexible when it comes to funding that deal, finding the down payment. One of the things that investors need to understand is they can leverage their current portfolio, right? So it's not just outside help and what is this lender going to give me for terms, or what is my mentor who's going to partner with me on this deal going to be able to come up with in terms of a percentage. You have that portfolio at your disposal, and you can do a lot of things with that.
Sure. It gives you buying power, for a lot of things. And it also gives you, as you expand, now that you've done, we went from 3 assets to 10 assets. Well, your partnerships in the other avenues with your flooring and windows and all the other things that you've put into your asset to improve them, those become more valuable partnerships as they grow as well. So it really works across all gamuts in the strategy.
Yep. And there's nothing like being able to travel the country, do presentations, train people, speak with people. One of the things that people always get blown away by is the cash out refinance, right? It's being able to take the existing equity from a property in your portfolio, paying off an existing loan, and then doubling down with that leftover money. Now you have enough money for your next property, right? So it's not just about finding a new property and getting a loan for it. It's, well, I've already got 6 properties, so how does this help me reach the next level? I think that's another turning point when you talk about fix and flip versus buy and hold, single family versus multifamily. It's adding to your portfolio versus utilizing your portfolio and allowing that to help you take the next step as well.
Well, and it's a multiplying factor.
Yep.
1 to 3, 3 to 9, it keeps doing it. And I think that, and you've also, as you've done that, you've made your mistakes, everyone does, but you've learned from them, improved upon them, and are much more proficient on how you go forward.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for you to do it. And there's also, with your history and your good credit,
Yeah.
it's easier for you to get things done as well.
RCN Capital offers flexible loan programs designed to help wholesale partners close their clients' deals faster. From fix and flip properties to long-term rentals, new construction, and multifamily investments, we provide your clients with the funding solutions they need. With competitive terms and a quick approval process, we make it easy to focus on growing your business while we handle the financing. Learn more or apply today. Click the link in our bio or email info@rcncapital.com. Let RCN Capital help take your wholesale deals to the next level. One thing I want people to understand too, for the investors that are listening about this specific topic, is I think one of our favorite phrases of this foundational series has been time is money. Well, if you work with a private lender, that process becomes extremely efficient, right? What a private lender will do for you is not ask about your W-2s or your tax returns or annual income statements, right? They boil it down to, is the investor in a place where they can afford this loan right now?
Sure.
If the answer is yes, then they move forward at a much faster pace, right? Then the banks will bog you down, have you dredge up different documents and jump through hoops to get approved. I think with a private lender, it's very black and white. It's, can you get approved? If so, let's close this right now. Whereas other forms of lending, there's lots of stages or checkpoints, if you will. Private lending tries to get you from A to B as quick as possible.
And as much as private lending is the significant funding strategy for this industry, you've got some of these people who are past executives that have decided to leave that space and do this. You may have your IRA that you can use to. So understand what you have at your disposal. Not only can you use your equity, what else do you have as an individual to help you acquire the asset, to help you fund some of these things? Where instead you pay your IRA back on the rental income that you purchased that house for. Now you start paying that back with the income from your residence. So there's a lot of things that you can do to not only grow your retirement and your portfolio at the same time.
Yeah, and I think the information is attainable. if the investor wants to do so. But another partnership that is worth mentioning is a financial advisor, right? These people are very well versed in how to take advantage of the money or the assets that you already have, right? You mentioned the self-directed IRA, and the light bulb just went off my head. Is financial advisor can
Sure.
dictate and tell you what avenues to go down, what's going to be best for your current situation. Okay, your goals are X, Y, and Z. Here's how we get there, so they can help you set goals and reach them. So I think that's another person worth having in the contact book if you're a real estate investor.
Well, and you trust them to make recommendations for stock acquisition.
Yeah.
Well, why not trust them to help you make your acquisition with your portfolio from your own personal IRA?
Yep.
So,
And they're a great person to talk to, because maybe if they can't help you, there's a good chance that they know somebody that can, right? Within their professional sphere or circle, or people that they trust, right? They're willing to make a recommendation, say, I might not have all the answers for you, but I know somebody that does. And that sounds a lot like our industry, right? It's like, I might not be able to help you with this particular deal, but I know somebody who can, or you have partnerships that you formed and you rely on them when you need them most. So it all comes full circle in that regard.
they could also be the financial planner for the roofer, the window guy,
Yeah.
the flooring guy. So, so that there, I mean, you start to, develop this inner circle of who you want to work with and who have been good to you, and you can be good to them as well.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, because not all private lenders are created equal, right? There are certain ones out there that can move at a much faster pace, even faster than your standard private lender, right? So it's doing that research, it's attending, local. I think local REIAs are a great place.
Sure they are.
A lot of people go there with the idea of, I'm going to be able to help investors fund properties at a local capacity, right? They might not be able to fund that multifamily down in Austin, Texas, but if you're looking right down the street, you'd be surprised just how many people are involved in real estate and looking to help investors.
And also, pick their brain. But, you go to the local REIA meeting and you ask them, who did you use for property management? What are the recommendations you can make for roofers? But, they're all, and that's not a competitive, component of this. If they recommend their roofer to you, well, their roofer thanks them also. So it's a I don't want to call it a quid pro quo, but it's a well-respected relationship.
Yeah, and I think when we're talking about common funding options, it's being able to lean on experienced professionals until you are one yourself, right? There's always going to be people that are in your shoes that are a little bit overwhelmed, maybe is the right word, by all the options that are available, all the different loan types and strategies that are out there. But if you align yourself with the right people that get you off the ground, then you're in a place where you can start to give back. It becomes second nature to you.
Sure.
And you just know every deal. And it might not always be private lending, as we talk about. There are a number of different options out there. It's like, okay, I have this deal. I know it's perfect for this private lender. I have this deal. Okay, I'm going to fund it through my self-directed IRA. There's a lot of different niches and avenues that you can take advantage of. It just kind of takes time to familiarize yourself with them.
And you can cross-pollinate your portfolio.
Yeah.
Maybe you buy one with your IRA. You do another 203K loan with a local bank or a credit union. And then you also have 3 or 4 deals through a private lender. And now once you've got those all situated and performing, they can now become your portfolio borrowing power as well. So it doesn't matter how you got it into your portfolio, as long as they're performing positively. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insight and strategies from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information at your fingertips. Visit rei-ink.com to elevate your real estate investment game today.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about this industry too, is it's not a one size fits all. A lot of people, obviously numbers play an extremely important part of this. Let's not get that confused, but there is that room to be a little, I don't know, creative, I guess. Artistic is a little too much, but I think there's so many creative ways that you can come up with financing. There's so many different options out there. There's people that are working right now to create a different option to be that newest, most unique thing that people want to take advantage of. So it's an ever evolving industry, and there's so many options out there when it comes to funding your next deal.
Well, and long-term funding in the private lending space is relatively new. That wasn't around for years. And so now they're seeing the longevity of this market. So make sure you're aware of what's out there and what's on the horizon for that. And that's really, you want to have your partnerships. You want someone who could say, hey, now that you've got 6 assets, you want to look at something a little differently. Here's a strategy for you to think about. So go to your lending partners and find out how they can help you to expand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the long-term loans are a little bit of a newer thing for private lending. The DSCR program is another one of those examples where you're allowing a lender to be a very creative and help an investor. And for those unfamiliar with DSCR, it stands for debt service coverage ratio, and it pretty much just guarantees that this investment is a sound one, right? The numbers make sense. The investor is putting themselves in a good position to be successful long-term with this investment. So there are a few metrics. Some private lenders are different than others, and they want to see you at least above a 1. Some are willing to take a little bit lower because their thought process there is the property is going to increase in value over time. Thus, the rent rolls go up, and eventually the DSCR comes good, right? But that's another avenue for investors to do their research on. But if they aren't taking advantage of a 30-year DSCR program, they should strongly consider it.
Of course. And you look at, and that gives you the chance to use the payments for the rental roll, and all of those things contribute to the decision factor now. And so there's other things that, they see the benefit and they see the longevity in these deals make terrific sense for everybody involved.
That's one of the things I think it's important to stress too. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but most, if not all, private lenders, anyone's worth working with anyways, are going to make sure that the deal is sound, right? There was that shtick in the past where it's like, private lending, hard money. That's a really risky way to go about investing or trying to find a deal to invest in real estate. Now they're trying to be as legitimate as possible. They're covering all their bases. They know the problems before the investors can even find them, right? So they've weeded all that out, and they make sure that these products are just suited with the investor in mind. At the end of the day, if you do a deal with an investor and it's crappy and it blows up in their face, they're never going to come back.
Right.
If you do a deal with an investor that succeeds and makes them money within a couple months, they're going to not only come back to you, they're going to tell everybody they know about it. I just had the most pleasant experience with this company. I can't wait to use them again. If you ever consider doing this, use them, right? And that's just where the floodgates open for a private lender.
And it works. It's a new form of fund. I shouldn't say new form, but it's evolving and constantly evolving. And I think that's where finding out what you can do and how you can maximize it. Because they don't want to end up having to take a property back. If somebody overestimated or underperformed, no one wants that to happen, because you've lost all of your cash down payment, and the bank and the funder is now on the hook for the property. Nobody wins there. But if you can find the right scenario, it'll work. Thanks, everyone, for watching the foundational episodes with RCN Capital and REI Inc. We very much appreciate you, part of our audience. Looking forward to seeing you next time.
See you guys next week on Uncontested Investing.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook, and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.